A large crowd, chanting, Allahu Akbar, and hurling insults about the dirty pigs and rats in a Jewish neighborhood. If anyone dares to question this, is it considered Islamophobia? Is it truly bigotry, or is it a legitimate concern that should be addressed by every political leader? The Prime Minister has chosen not to call it out, possibly because he lacks the strength or the will to do so. This kind of silence is deafening, and the refusal to confront uncomfortable truths is a betrayal of fundamental values. Yet, while this goes unchecked, Tommy Robinson, a figure widely regarded as a right-wing agitator, is being discussed in certain circles as a hero. How is it that he is being allowed to stand as a Tory MP in the next election? The hypocrisy is glaring. In this House, there is hardly anyone who would openly support Tommy Robinson, yet the broader question remains: why do some people face consequences while others do not? Keir Starmer's response to the rise of anti-Semitism has been peculiar. Instead of addressing it head-on, he appears more concerned with speaking about the dangers of Islamophobia. Here he is, alongside London Mayor Sadiq Khan, doing precisely that. One of the issues that keeps coming up is Islamophobia. The statistics speak for themselves, and we can see that the numbers have been rising, particularly since October 7th. However, we must not fall into the trap of thinking that this was an isolated event. Even before October 7th, Islamophobia was already far too high. It has been a persistent issue, and we need to make it clear that Islamophobia is completely unacceptable. There can be no justification for it, and we must adopt a zero-tolerance approach. There is much more that can be done at the governmental level. The problem of online hate speech, for example, needs to be tackled with far greater urgency, and there it is. Instead of tackling anti-Semitism, they pivot to discussing Islamophobia, setting the stage for even more online censorship. Under Labour, the emphasis will likely shift towards silencing dissent rather than addressing real issues. This approach prioritizes controlling the narrative over dealing with the realities of extremism. Douglas Murray, known for his sharp critiques, recently made headlines after taking Keir Starmer to task during a live television appearance. His choice of words may have been harsh, but they were certainly reflective of the frustration many feel about Starmer's leadership. Murray's comments highlight a growing sentiment that Starmer is failing to demonstrate decisive leadership, particularly on sensitive issues where strength is required. While some may argue that the language used was excessive, the deeper issue is the increasing polarization of political discourse. Strong statements like these become inevitable when political leaders avoid addressing core issues with clarity and resolve. This is a fundamental question. If a Muslim crowd in Toronto is chanting hateful rhetoric against Jewish communities, can we call it out without being accused of Islamophobia? If the answer is no, then we have a serious problem. We must be able to criticize Islamic anti-Semitism without fear of being labeled bigots. The marches that have taken over the streets of London week after week since October have been dominated by one demographic. These demonstrations, overwhelmingly Muslim in composition, have not just been about expressing political opinions, they have featured some of the most intolerant and hateful rhetoric imaginable. If pointing that out is deemed Islamophobic, then we are setting ourselves up for a dangerous precedent where truth is subordinated to political correctness. The Labour Party has yet to reckon with the full consequences of this. If it continues to prioritise the appeasement of certain voting blocs over standing for fundamental principles, it will find itself trapped in an unresolvable conflict. The consequences of this inconsistency will be severe, both politically and socially. If Labour continues down this path, it will inevitably alienate a significant portion of the electorate, those who see this double standard for what it is and refuse to accept it. In Parliament, the issue has already become a point of contention. One megapixel, rising to make a point of order, remarked, "Regrettably, Mr. Speaker has inserted himself into this debate in a way that undermines the confidence of this House. Our long-established standing orders exist to govern our discussions, and they should not be influenced by the internal struggles of a divided Labour Party. It is vital that all members of this House can rely on these traditions. The Speaker must take this opportunity to reassure all members that he will not undermine parliamentary rights to serve the interests of a particular faction. Opposition Day debates should not be hijacked in this manner. This must be made clear for the benefit of all members. Keir Starmer's leadership is now under intense scrutiny. If he is perceived as inconsistent in addressing racism, it will weaken his standing not just among voters but within his own party. The refusal to call out anti-Semitic rhetoric when it originates from within certain communities reveals an unwillingness to apply equal standards across the board. This will not go unnoticed. Political opponents will undoubtedly use this to challenge Starmer's credibility on matters of equality and justice. For the Labour Party, this issue carries profound consequences. If it appears to be prioritising the concerns of one group over another, it risks fracturing its base. In a diverse society, leadership requires the ability to stand firmly against all forms of hatred, regardless of where they originate. If Labour is seen as selectively applying its principles, it will lose the trust of many who believe in fairness and consistency. Douglas Murray has not shied away from addressing these issues directly. His critique of Starmer highlights a critical point. Leadership requires the courage to stand up to all forms of extremism, not just the ones that are politically convenient to condemn. If Labour continues to focus on managing perceptions rather than tackling these issues head-on, it will erode public confidence in its ability to govern effectively. The long-term risks of this approach cannot be overstated. If extremist rhetoric is allowed to flourish without opposition, it will embolden those who seek to divide communities further. A failure to confront these realities now could lead to far greater societal tensions in the future. Leadership demands the ability to make difficult decisions and take unpopular stances when necessary. If Keir Starmer cannot demonstrate that kind of leadership, he may find himself unable to unite his own party, let alone the country. This is not a theoretical concern, it is a reality that is playing out before our eyes. The reluctance to challenge extremism, regardless of its source, is a dangerous gamble. If certain communities are given a pass when they engage in discriminatory behavior, while others are condemned for far less, the result will be deep-seated resentment and division. The British public is not blind to these inconsistencies. Many are beginning to recognize the double standards at play, and they will not accept a political establishment that refuses to apply the same rules to everyone. In a society that values fairness, selective outrage will not stand the test of time. The core issue here is not Islamophobia, nor is it anti-Semitism, it is hypocrisy. If we are serious about combating hatred, then we must be willing to call it out wherever it appears. That means standing up to anti-Semitism within certain Muslim communities just as forcefully as we stand up to Islamophobia. Anything less is not just cowardice, it is an abandonment of principle. The Labour Party and Keir Starmer have a choice to make. Will they uphold the values of fairness and equality, or will they continue to prioritise political expediency over moral clarity? The answer to that question will determine not only their electoral future but the future of Britain as a whole. Thanks for watching. Be sure to join our free Telegram group linked in the description, where we can discuss important issues freely and without censorship. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and consider becoming a channel member for exclusive content.
See you next time.